All right. Hey guys, my name is Roman Bohuk. This is Jake Smith, and for the next 50 minutes we're going to talk about some of the ways that professionals and companies can help students in high schools and colleges to get involved in security early on.
So kind of who are we? We're both seniors about to graduate from Deep Run, so I guess we're actually graduating just next Tuesday. So in the past 4 years, we're in the Center for Information Technology program at Deep Run, and that's so we're taking special computer science classes throughout high school. So we haven't really had formal security training, if you will. We don't have any certifications yet, but we've been very interested in cybersecurity, and over the past couple of years, we've had the opportunities to participate in different competitions and do CTFs and whatnot a little on our own. We also organize our own Meta CTF competition, which we'll get to more later, but that's basically a way for us to kind of spread cybersecurity and get people interested into it. And then from going to all these conferences and whatnot, we've met a lot of different people. Mentors have been very helpful along the process, and so today we're going to be talking a bit more about that. So about me, I really got into cybersecurity like 3 years ago as a 10th grader, doing different CTF challenges, and from there I kind of knew that this is something I wanted to pursue more. And then in addition to security, although they kind of don't really go together, I'm really passionate about project management and how kind of that ties into like a business perspective. And then next year in the fall, I'll be attending the University of Virginia to study computer science.
All right, so my interests are essentially the same as Jake's. We're in the same program in the same school. I enjoy computer science, more emphasis on mathematics as well as security. Myself, I don't want to limit myself to a single area of IT, such as just programming or just cybersecurity. So I want to be I enjoy being a generalist in a way. And I hope to continue studying at computer science at UVA next year. All right, so today we're going to talk about some of the ways that professionals can help, and we have three main topics that we're going to talk about. So first of all, how to get students involved in security. Then programming and computer science in the past have been very relevant topics, and there are more and more programmers that are trained going to the workforce every day. One of the problems is that those people, even though they know how to program, they have never been formally exposed to cybersecurity, which poses a lot of risks to companies, and that's one of the things we want to address. And second, finally, we want to see how industry professionals can connect to students and vice versa.
So kind of for the agenda, we'll start off talking about a bit about the current landscape, like what is making cybersecurity so big today, and how is this impacting the jobs market and training for that, and then a bit more about what we're looking for in the ideal security candidate. So because we're going to have all about programs and training, and if you're mentoring students, we want to figure out what skills we're looking for within students, and then we'll also talk about some of the established programs and our experiences with them, and maybe that will give you some ideas about security and how you guys can get involved in your local communities, whether that's here or in another state. And then our main topic today is how do we get you guys involved? How do we connect industry, and how do we get that to the students to give them the opportunities and resources they need to go into the field of cybersecurity? So obviously, if you're in this room and you're at the conference today, you think cybersecurity is important. It's all throughout the news, it's everywhere, and that's corresponded to tons of job opportunities. So in Virginia, there's over 35,000 open cybersecurity jobs right now, and that's a huge talent gap of where we are today to where we would like to be. There's tons of open cybersecurity positions that are just going unfilled because there's simply not enough training and programs out there. And so for the past decade, we've concentrated a lot on IT. IT has blossomed over the past decade or so with computers becoming really big. There's IT programs everywhere. Every college is going to have an information systems degree or information technology, some sort of IT degree. But then over the past couple of years, as IT has expanded and reached even more, it's become specialized. So we have application security, web design, development, security, databases. So there's kind of so many different areas. And then, so concentrating on security, how we train people in security, and then also how we train people in other disciplines to really think about security and integrate. Because security isn't one person, security is everyone, all your users. So kind of how we get everyone in a security mindset, and does everyone need to be in a security mindset? So even someone like Taylor Swift is thinking about cybersecurity these days. Whether when she's producing a song, she probably has some sort of security practices in order to keep like intellectual property safe and all. But really, like in the media, every day we're seeing cybersecurity in the news these days. So before, it wasn't really a thing, but like last month when WannaCry hit, any news station you were watching probably had something, oh, the England's medical systems are down. WannaCry and all these other cyber attacks like the shadow brokers, that's in the news, the DNC breach. And so cybersecurity has become quickly an issue that's affecting all of us, and that's also translating into lots of opportunities as well. So specifically, we have, to kind of sum it up into a couple key points here, lots of open jobs in cybersecurity. And for the most part, there's not a lot of programs right now, and that's what's being in development. Not a lot of programs that are training people to have all the cybersecurity skills they need. And every day, it's becoming a huge, it's impacting more and more people. Cybersecurity risks are just blossoming. That's not really a good thing, but it's also creating lots of jobs in the process. And so how can we, as an information security community, come together and industry connect to students to give them the resources and then also the mentorship they need, whether at a young age, to get them really interested?
All right, so there are some challenges with the current field. Not challenges as in like security people are bad, but challenges for people who are trying to get into the field. So first of all, to me as a high school student, when I hear about cybersecurity, I always think of somebody like doing some magical something on a computer. And even if I want to be a part of that community, I always feel reluctant to kind of go there and try things for myself, because I think there's a really high barrier of entry. It's ongoing, it's complicated. Every day something changes. People need to understand that. Diverse skill set required. So if you want to work in security, you usually need to be kind of a, I'm going to use this term again, IT generalist. If you want to secure something, you have to know how it works from the low level, from technology to the user interface. And so that's where your skill set needs to be diverse. Yeah.
And it can be intimidating too when we hear the news about all these complex hacks and using buffer overflows and SQL injection to hack into all these websites and whatnot. That can be a bit intimidating for a student just getting into security, or really anyone just getting into security. So security can be a bit scary to get into and start into. So a bit more about, before we talk about some of the programs, what are some of like the ideal characteristics for like someone in the information security community? First of all, they should have that foundational knowledge. A lot of people, they might know, say, what a base 64 string is, but do they know the underlying principles about like how bases and like binary versus base 16 versus base 64? Do they know how all those components work? Do they know the individual like network basics and protocols underlying all the stuff we use? And that can be really helpful to apply that knowledge across so many different things, because security is, you might have an individualized security role, but security is dealing with the security of all the systems and how they all combine together. In addition, we want people to think outside the box. So we want people to be creative, not someone that's just going to be like a narrow-minded. We want people that are going to be able to problem solve any problems that come up, someone that can debug an issue or find the root cause, and not just only know one certain pathway to do something. They should also know, it's actually funny, know how to Google. I put this on there, but a lot of people, surprisingly, like don't know how to Google, if you will. Like they don't know how to properly search for things on the internet, find things. To be like, they need to be resourceful. Like, so when you go up to someone like advanced like Googling techniques, it's actually a really beneficial skill that a lot of people should know in the 21st century, but a lot of people don't really know about some of these things. A bit of paranoia too helps in security, just being always like not super trusting, but like trusting but verifying and whatnot. And then good presentational skills. So in our program at the Deep Run High School where we're at, we are obviously taking like a lot of computer science courses, but actually a lot of the program is actually project management based. So like we received our certified Scrum Masters and whatnot. So being able to connect the security to the business, so how that impacts the business and different risk. So in addition, like not only should be like a super technical person, but ideally they can understand business needs and be able to apply those. And think like a hacker. Not everyone has to think like a hacker, but that mindset, that it's kind of a different mindset than we might think. But being able to think about how someone else would use the system, how they would hack in, can be very beneficial.
All right, so having said all that, the actual current school system is not very supportive of kind of creating students that fulfill all of these characteristics. So in schools, from a personal experience, students are usually taught some very specific ways to solve problems, and we're not discouraged, but it's very hard for us to go ahead and learn something outside of the curriculum. There's no incentive. So, for example, if I learn something in class, and if I want to learn more, it's very hard for me to get the teacher to ask him questions. There's no support for that. For example, since we're talking about cybersecurity, there are a few programs that are already out that they can teach it to you, but cybersecurity is not something that everybody is kind of given access to. It's not something that everybody's forced to do. So unless you have your own initiative and you want to study cybersecurity, you won't get exposed to it. What we're trying to say is that everybody, even if you're just a programmer and you do not want to be part of the security community in the future, you still need to have the exposure to it just so that you can develop the code that is safe and secure. All right, so in the school system, some things cannot be fixed, but once again, students learn programming, and without any prior experience with security, they go in, start developing code. They get very high. They're very powerful because they create code that's going to be used in industrial systems by big corporations. A lot of people think that security is something that you just put at the end. It's something that you just, you write the code and there's like the security step. You just attach it at the end and then secure. People need to understand that as you're developing the code, every single line you write, you need to be able to verify that you need to evaluate it for potential vulnerabilities and make sure that it is secure. And on the same topic, relative cost to fix the problems later on increases. In the SDLC cycle, you've probably seen this topic, that it takes the least amount of effort to just change something in the design phase, but then eventually in maintenance, it can take 100 times as many resources to fix the bug if you find it later. And that's why in the modern time, most of these bugs have to deal with security, and that's why people, as they develop the code, they need to know, they need to do it right the first time. So in the past few years, there has been this notion that computer science is very restricted, that schools need to teach more computer science. At this point in 2017, this is still true, but not as much. Almost every school offers some computer classes, but the problem now is that the schools do not offer cybersecurity classes. So they teach you programming, but they once again, do not teach you the security part of it. And there are no opportunities to study cybersecurity. So on the other hand, there are some students that actually want to pursue this field. They want to learn more about the security. They understand the risks, but at the same time, they do not have the contacts or the resources to actually make this first step and get involved in the field. And this is where you can actually help, you can talk to the students, and you can get involved and get high school students who are actually interested get started in cybersecurity.
And so that brings us to how you guys can help in the presentation. So we've established that cybersecurity is a huge field today. There's lots of opportunities in it, and it can be difficult to get in. So how can industry and businesses and government, how can they help students begin to give them the resources and mentorship they need to do well early on? So for example, professionals, there's lots of ways you guys can get involved, and we'll talk some more like specifics later about specific programs, but just taking the first step. So in my experience, we've had a number of different, Rome and I have had a number of different mentors throughout the past couple of years, like Rob Fuller and a couple others, and those people have been very helpful in giving us the resources. That's how we got to like a conference today and doing competitions. They're like, oh, if you're interested in cybersecurity, here's this opportunity, here's another opportunity to go forth with. And that's been, and that support, and it doesn't even have to be monetary, so that individualized support can be very helpful in getting people into security. In addition, so volunteering at different events, there's tons of different opportunities out there if you put forth a little effort to find those. And then it's also beneficial for companies too. It's on a broader scale, you can be sponsoring different competitions. So we'll talk a bit more, but our Meta CTF competition, which is the CTF we started, GE, Assura, the Math and Science Center, they've all sponsored that competition for a number of years, and that's really helped us to grow and expand it and bring the competition to more students and get more people involved. But that's like a monetary contribution, but also it can be as simple as spreading the word, getting people to volunteer their time and efforts into helping the students succeed and giving them the opportunities they need. Another good way is internships. So internships are a great way to learn, and also for the companies on the reverse side, they get to see kind of a new perspective and maybe even do like a potential recruiting for the future. Also like hardware, software, other resources. So everybody knows that public schools aren't necessarily a wealth of funding. So sometimes you may not have the resources. A lot of the schools aren't going to have all the resources and servers and new hardware that they need to be able to provide the nice lab environments that someone in the corporate world might be used to. And so like with old hardware and whatnot, companies might be able to donate some of that to the schools.
And a lot of the time, even if you have old hardware, that, for example, an old server, you can just bring it to the school. You do not need to set it up for the students. It can be students' responsibility to actually research all the specifications themselves, the setup process, and then set it up the server on the network themselves. Like, even if you can't actually help them with it, just bringing in hardware still helps. All right, so companies, professionals, parents really kind of influence a lot of things that their children do. So from my experience and from what I heard, there are kind of two types of parents. Some of them, one of them show the risks and they let you still pursue the career in technology, and the other ones, they show you the risks and then they're paranoid about it and they restrict all of the access to technology to you. So it's very important that as parents, you're supportive of what they're doing, and if somebody wants to participate in competition, you not only let them do it, but you also encourage them to do it. Yeah, when we host our own Meta CTF competition, very often we ask students to come, but they don't want to come. They've never heard of the cybersecurity field. They feel very reluctant to pursue it. And as a parent, you probably should encourage them to go into it, even if they don't want to, because they will like it, hopefully. So teachers, you should organize some cybersecurity or computer club at your school. Definitely contact local organizations. From my experience, most companies are willing to help. They're willing to bring in speakers. They're willing to possibly provide some resources. But it's often the teacher's job to actually contact the the companies and professionals for help. There are some schools in Virginia that are more advanced than others, and it might help to actually talk to those schools and possibly unite the classes together. First of all, this allows for sharing of information. Students from different schools, they can talk to each other, they can learn from each other. And at the same time, this builds a kind of a network of people who, in the future, as they grow up, they will be able to trust each other, rely on each other, and maybe even at some point share information about threats, vulnerabilities that they found. So to you as professionals in this field, there's definitely some benefits of helping. First of all, I mean, return on investment. 3 years ago, we were at a conference at COVID's. Anthony Fong, he said that in a few years, like almost half of the people who are working in information technology in the government will retire, which means that the number of people working in the government or in technology in general is going to go down soon. And so after you retire, there needs to be someone who actually can replace you. And that's why you should talk to the students and help them. Mentoring it's a rewarding experience. When you teach others, you not only share your knowledge, you not only share your experience, tell about the mistakes you did, but you also get something back. Yep.
And so finally, we're going to talk about now a lot of the opportunities and different competitions of what we've participated in, and hopefully that gives you guys some ideas and other ideas to help pursue if you're interested in volunteering locally. So with CyberPatriot, I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar with that, but basically you work in teams work in a group of like 5 or so students, and they're given like virtual machines. So like a Windows Server, Ubuntu, some other Linux distro, and basically they are go secure it. So their job is acting almost like a blue team. They're working on securing, like applying proper administrative policies, removing bad software, detecting bad services, so different things like that. And so that's really a good way for students to get hands-on learning security. That can be one of the toughest challenges, to get that hands-on experience with security. And so programs like this have been super helpful in getting people involved. One way that's been particularly helpful is that each of the teams has a mentor, so that mentor can be someone from industry. So for example, our CyberPatriot team had Rob Fuller mentor us the last couple years, and he was able to provide support and guidance and suggestions along the way, and told us like what to research, because if we're not familiar with it, it can be very hard to learn about CyberPatriot or do well in CyberPatriot and succeed without some of the advanced knowledge of like Windows systems. And so CyberPatriot is actually a national competition, so it's all over the United States. It's for both middle and high school students. All the ROTC programs around the United States probably have a CyberPatriots team. So if you just Google CyberPatriot, there's a website and you can look up which schools have CyberPatriot teams. And because oftentimes, even though it's ideal that the teams have mentors from industry, a lot of the CyberPatriot teams just don't have that extra connection to industry that's really given them the knowledge that they should have. So definitely check out if you're interested to mentor. It can be super rewarding, and it's also really great for the students to have that access.
And I'm not completely sure, but I think the CyberPatriot website actually has a service, but maybe a form that allows you to submit your information. And if you live nearby, they might actually connect you to a school. So that might be very helpful. So at schools, computer club. Not all schools have computer clubs or cybersecurity clubs, and those things should definitely be a thing there. At our school, we have a group of students who are all interested in information technology, and then we have a lot of different subgroups in the computer club that pursue different topics. For example, programming, data analysis, game design, cybersecurity. And so students in those groups, they work with themselves. They research different topics. They created their projects. And then at the end of the month, for example, all of those groups come together and they share their experience. They demonstrate what they did. This is very helpful. It's very, having this kind of group, being a part of a group is very encouraging. At our school, over the past 4 years, we actually had, maybe every year we got an additional mentor that come every Friday to our school. So if you live nearby, it might be very helpful for you to maybe talk to some teacher, maybe talk to a student who goes to a school locally, check if they have a computer club, maybe volunteer to speak there, talk to the teacher and just be there. So for a lot of people, for a lot of students, even if they're interested, it's very hard for them to be involved because they do not have a personal connection with a person who is willing to help them if they have any questions. For example, some students, they listen to videos, they listen to talks, they read, they learn themselves, but they never meet anybody, an actual person working in IT that can actually help them become part of the community. And so if you come and you volunteer, this will definitely expose some of the high school students or college students to the opportunities. For example, in your computer club meetings, in your cybersecurity group, there are definitely a lot of things that you can do. CTFs have always been a fun way to introduce some basic concepts and just spark interest about cybersecurity. War games are very similar to CTFs. So sometimes you may have to provide some incentives to get students to participate, small prizes, but yeah.
So a bit more to expand upon CTFs and hackathons. So for those that are not familiar, CTF is basically a virtual capture the flag. So different areas like reconnaissance, web exploitation, reverse engineering, kind of all those ideas and concepts kind of condensed down, and depending on how you format it, a lot of CTFs online are actually formed so you can learn as you go along. So it's not something, not some DEF CON CTF that's going to be impossible to do, but something that's attainable for the students. And that's a really, really great resource to get them started. So a couple online ones are mentioned: HS CTF, Pico CTF, and then of course Meta CTF is the initiative Roman and I have created. Those are great ways, and they provide lots of feedback and everything structured so the students can learn as they go along, which for someone getting into the field of security is definitely very helpful. So just like at RVAsec CTF, all the problems are very, they want you to learn about them as you're doing them. And so that's a very valuable component of a lot of the CTFs online. And then for hackathons, hackathons are basically collaborative problem-solving competitions. So you're working in teams, whether you know the people or not. That can be also, so introducing people into security in like a fun, team-based, competitive environment can show them all the, can show them how much they enjoy cybersecurity and doing that, if it's something they want to pursue. If it's not their passion, which it might not be, that's fine, but this is another good way to introduce people to security in general. And of course, there's lots of benefits from that too. So for the students, job opportunities, internship opportunities, it can be also very fun to compete. A lot of people are very competitive, so that can be another way to kind of gamify it, if you will. And then finally, for the companies, they get some recruitment to hire interns or employees in the future, and then that community involvement aspect as well.
So there are some examples: high school CTF, Pico CTF. Almost every month, there is a different high school CTF done worldwide, nationwide, that has some prizes. But most of these competitions actually retain all of their problems. They actually release all of their problems from the past years. So you can use that to practice. And they have some amazing write-ups that show what steps the individuals took to actually get to the problem. And this can be very helpful. So our competition, MetaCTF, which we created a few years ago, our goal is to invite as many middle school students and as many high school students as we can, and actually connect them personally to the industry professionals. So we meet a lot of people. We send them emails. We ask them to come, and at the actual event, we try to make sure that the professionals actually talk to the individual students, maybe to share some contact information, share some of their experience. Yeah, well, in the past we hosted the competition maybe about 7 or 8 times, 3 times at our school, Longwood University, helping to do with RVAsec. We wrote a course for the Math Science Innovation Center. There's a yearly summer course called Digital Detectives, where they do meta CTF at the end of at the end of their classes. And also we hosted at GE a few weeks ago for their employees. But the problems are, so we definitely have some hard challenges, but most of the problems are very easy to solve, and they require a diverse set of skills. So there are not many programming. Our competition does not include a lot of programming challenges because that is not something that everybody knows about, knows how to do. But we include a lot of challenges that ask you about things that you might have learned like one day, just accidentally, but it kind of exploits these things and makes them fun.
So for example, at our last Meta CTF competition, we had over 90 middle and high school students from the area participate, and that's a great example of how, and with the help of, we had several different sponsors for the event, and that's a really good example of how industry can help the students get involved with security and promote different programs like this. GhostRed is another great example. So I believe we have some people from GE that started it in the audience with us. So GE, a couple of years ago, they decided to start their own kind of hackathon as a way of like a recruiting method for the business almost. And they've held that around the country numerous times, getting people interested not only in security, but also in IT and different skill sets that drive IT within the business. So that program has really taken off, and it's another great example of getting people into security and getting people involved. Rome and I have participated like 3 different times in their competition. They've held it at like the Math and Science Center for like middle and high school students to get involved in that competitive environment is something that's really helps the students to be introduced to it and find it fun and interesting.
So CCDC is something more for college students. CCDC stands for Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, and it is for, so students from different universities around the area come together in groups of maybe 7 to 11 people, approximately, and they're given a few days to work on a network of virtual machines to secure it in real time, while professional hackers on the red team try to break into the systems. Then there is also a white team, a gold team. They do a lot of injects on the students to simulate a real world experience. For example, they try to ask them to give a report, or ask them to go to a meeting. But so there are a few ways you can participate. First of all, you can of course be part of the red team. You probably have to apply to it. You probably have to have some connections, but you can also go to the different universities and actually talk to the teams, share some of the ways, share some of your hacker stories, share the ways that you try to protect the systems in your organization. What's also really important is the business side of information technology. So people need to be able to not only actually secure the network, but also be able to clearly say what's happening, clearly describe everything, know exactly what to say. And US professionals have more experience with that, and you can definitely mentor them in that too.
So another aspect might be harder for like high school students to get into, but conferences is another great way. So maybe so a lot of B-sides is held around the country, to all the way up to conferences like RVAsec, DEF CON, those type of things. They're another great way to get students and university students and even people just interested in the field of security into kind of participating in different events, participating in the community, and meeting and networking with people. That's been a really crucial aspect. I've met so many people here today and last year and at different conferences that they've been able to help get me in contact with the people I need or to contribute different resources. So that's very beneficial for the students.
So conferences can be sometimes a bit expensive. So sometimes organizations pay for it. And if you have the opportunity to bring high school students or college students with you, definitely take that opportunity. And it doesn't have to be a conference. For example, some companies host their own internal events. And if you get permission, you can probably try to bring students to that as well, so they can network, so they can see how security is done in the real world. Right. Also, finally, all of this comes down to like mentoring. It's very beneficial to the students. Once again, it doesn't have to be monetary. Time is one of the most valuable things you can give to the students. Once again, students do not have the personal connection with the people, with the industry, and so they need people who can actually go there and talk to them. And finally, so we've been talking about bringing students into cybersecurity, high school students, college students. You have to make sure that you focus on ethics as well. Probably one of the first lessons you have to give to them is you have to make a clear distinction between what's right and what's wrong, what you're allowed to do, what's legal, what's not. So make sure to definitely focus on ethics.
And so this is obviously a two-way street with the students. Something like they're going to have to put forth effort. So our talk is mainly focusing in on what industry and industry professionals, how they can get involved and help. So if you're getting involved or if you've gotten involved, you've probably faced several different challenges like some of these. Some of the time that the students might have little interest in pursuing security, IT in general. We found like gamifying that through competitions has been really beneficial. So getting people thinking, oh, it's a team, they got to win and whatnot. That's been, or even offering students extra credit to come to our events. And like we found through Meta CTF, the first couple of years we held it, it was really, really difficult to get our peers to come to the event. But by the third year, we didn't even have to do like any recruiting because people were so excited about coming and competing in the competition that they came and we actually overflowed the space that we were in. Another way is it can be boring for a lot of people, and security isn't for everyone, but even if they've had that little exposure to security, that's going to benefit them later on. It's obviously going to benefit the security people as well. If someone sees and is thinking about security, even if they don't go into security now, in the future when they're in a different role, that's going to be at the forefront of their minds, or at least a thought in their mind, and that's going to be that's going to help them and help the security community greatly.
Yeah, well, finally, some students may say it's too hard. Guide them to easy capture the flag competitions. Once again, there are write-ups that explain all the processes. Sometimes it may be helpful to get some programming experience or just general kind of IT experience before they get into cybersecurity, so help them with that too.
And so as I mentioned before, this is definitely not a two-way street. The students have to take a lot of initiative. That's not going to happen with a lot of the students that you mentor. But for the students that really do and are passionate about cybersecurity, they're going to benefit so much from the help of industry and business. That's going to create incredible opportunities for them in the future. In addition, the students have to not be shy. Like, we wouldn't be here speaking to you today if we did not take advantage of opportunities that have given to us and be shy and networked with people. So the students really have to take it upon themselves to learn, but also as industry professionals and all, you guys can set a great role model for the students and kind of help them, guide them along the way. So to sum it up, we want, as students, we want the benefits, the knowledge, and the help of people in industry to kind of help the students along the way from wherever they can. It's not going to, a lot of people can benefit from this, and as cybersecurity becomes a greater part of our lives, the more and more people that are introduced to cybersecurity, the better.
So we definitely mentioned some of the programs that are already in place for you to help through. One of the hardest parts for you will probably be to make this initial contact with the teachers or the students. So you can definitely ask us. We might have some contacts. We might know some schools that might need help. On our website, we have a mailing list for both students and the people who, mentors who might want to help. And if an opportunity arises, we can send out an email asking for people who may want to help.
And we'll also be around all tomorrow at the CTF area. Come find us if you have questions, suggestions, and whatnot. It looks like we have about 5 or so minutes. If anyone has questions they want to ask, or you guys can come see us individually. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you mentioned the challenge of not having cybersecurity focused classes
Mm-hmm.
at the high school level. One of the things that I've heard previously is that it can also be effective, though, sometimes more effective, to get computer science teachers or other more general IT subjects to get them to incorporate security into what they're doing, because it encourages that mindset of having to really think about it at every turn and not just spring on some magic security dust at the end.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely like the ideal, and I think in the coming years, that's like the solution we're working towards. With now, computer science has been introduced heavily thanks to like code.org and other programs within so many schools. So I think if we can continually remind teachers and help give them the resources to learn, because even computer science teachers, if they weren't in the information security community, they might not have a lot of the resources. So just showing them the resources and then getting them to a stage where security is part of computer science curriculum and not really an extra field. It's something that's integrated.
And what we sometimes do with our peers, like to integrate computer science with security, sometimes they write some programs, and then like we see we just go look through the code and see like a string compare vulnerability in PHP or something else, and we just show, we use their own code and exploit it to show them that, yeah, and if we, doing it that way will probably be very, very helpful as well. Yep. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Definitely make sure to come out to the CTF tomorrow. Get a laptop. If you have a Linux virtual machine, that might be helpful. Yep.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.